computer. Kia ora. On the line, we've got Jeff Murupaenga Ikenn. Did I correctly pronounce that?
Tikana, yep, all good.
Oh, ka pai. So, Jeff, could you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
All right, yeah, well, tuatahi me mihi atu ki a koe, koutou katoa, ki te upoko, mo tēnei huihuinga, no Kanata me Norway o ko tupuna mā, engari e noho ana o ke whāngarei, ki Aotearoa mō ngā tau rua tekau mā whā, mā rima pia. My name is Jeff Murupaenga Ikenn, and yeah, originally from Canada, and my tupuna are Norwegian and some Galician gypsy in there as well. But yeah, I've been living in Te Hiku o Te Ika and then Te Tai Tokerau for probably the better half of 15 years, but I was in Pōneke for the first 10. So mihi atu ki a koutou, Te Aotearoa and Ngāti Toa Rangatira, and yeah, and now I'm in the north, normally, currently overseas, but in the north, and I guess we're going to talk about some electric bikes and electrification and EVs and such.
First of all, we have a friend in common.
We probably do. Probably many.
Kat.
Galway?
Kat. Catherine.
Oh, well, of course. Yeah, she happens to be my wife.
Yeah. Did you meet her in Wellington or up the north or where?
Funnily enough, we didn't. She was doing her thing in Pōneke when she was younger, and I was doing mine, and we ended up meeting in Taipa in Te Hiku.
Yeah, I met Kat a number of ways, doing different things. She studied at Victoria University, and then she left there with a master's in law, and then she went back home to her people. But we had many interactions over the years. Yeah, good friends.
Yeah, it was actually Tiano who I think originally introduced us. He gets credit for that one.
But, we interviewed him the other week. He's doing really
nice
well. Yeah, in the Green Party.
He's doing some good things. He's doing some good things with the Greens. But yeah, he and I used to rock it up in all the right ways and the wrong ways back in Pōneke when we were young and active activists. I mean, we still are active activists, but yeah, that's a whole nother quarter.
Yeah, and I think that is the corridor, bro. So I just want to introduce my cat in the background there. That's Kitty. I say my cat, but that cat actually belongs to the boys. Boys are just visiting. And that's your cat. Yeah, I got it. It's your cat. And I'm just looking after Kitty while they're in emergency housing. But there you go. I'm just looking after them this evening. Their mum asked me to pick them up and take care of them, but they can take care of themselves. So.
Oh, good. I'll give a quick shout out to my friend Te Porta, who's holding down the whare and looking after our cat Waka in Te Tai Tokerau while we're over here on holiday.
Okay, who's that? Who's your friend?
Her name is Te Porta. She's no Tainui, and another one of our activists, whānau, and an old mate of mine. So
Oh, ka pai. Now I know you through Facebook, funny enough, and you're a great advocate of electric motorcycles. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, let's see if I can make it short. The long and short is I've been a rider for a long time. I guide trips overseas in the Rockies. I guide trips in the Himalayas in India, Pakistan, and I've ridden all over, like Canada to Argentina and around Australia and all over Aotearoa. A few other places too, all through Europe. Not all the time because this stuff gets expensive. But the tour started as a guiding thing because I couldn't afford it. So I was like, well, try and turn it into a business. So I do a little bit of that, but electrification of, private transport is absolutely, it's now, but it's also, expanding in the future, and it should until something better comes along, primarily because of the fact that for those in the know, everything we're manufacturing is demanding of resources, but the difference is that once you're using it, you ain't emitting, there's no emissions. So, or aside from tires, if somebody wants to argue that, but and brake pads and whatnot, but it's very, very low to nil emissions when you're using it. And this is where we need to be. Like, this is an issue for our tamariki mokopuna, so we need to do what we can yesterday. So it's one way to do it.
Yeah, I didn't know how this conversation was going to go, but this is an interesting pathway because that's the crux of the issue. It's the
Mm,
environment, it's
mm.
the global warming, the climate change, all the stuff we're starting to experience now
Oh,
is
cool,
only
cool.
going to
Yeah,
get
that's it.
worse. And
Mm,
we're early adopters. You and I are early adopters. I drive an electric
mm.
van, and you
Yeah, you
ride
got the
an
IMEV,
electric.
I think. Eh?
Pardon?
You got the IMEV, I think.
Yeah, I got an IMEV van. So,
Yeah, yeah, they're awesome. Eh?
yeah, I love it.
Mm,
It's getting a bit long in the tooth now. I probably need to replace it. But hey, look, I've done a lot of miles in it, or kilometers, and they've been really inexpensive miles too for the cost of
mm,
the
mm.
vehicle, for the cost of the traveling. It's just awesome. And motorcycles are like the real adrenaline thing. And people who love motorcycles, when they actually ride electric motorcycles, they just love them.
Yeah, they're
So
blown away.
we another friend of mine who's into motorcycles is Sam Baker. I'm not sure if you know him or not.
Sam and I are old mates. We've
Yeah,
ridden in America
thought
together
you would be.
testing electric motorcycles. I
Yeah,
actually brought both of our first electric motorcycles in together into
yeah.
the country. So we've known each other for years. So yeah,
So did
we've
you have
ridden
a Zero?
together.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
started out with
okay.
a zero. Yeah. Just like
Yeah, because he's
Sam's,
got a
mine was a
YouTube
year
channel
older than
called
his.
New Zero Land.
New zero and yep, yep.
Yeah.
And he's
Have you
he's
got a
he's doing
YouTube
very
channel at
well.
all?
Pardon? No,
Have you got a YouTube channel?
I can't compete with Sam. He's I mean he his day job is making videos. So
Yeah.
I leave him to that and I just do the blogs and
Yeah.
social media.
Oh, so you work with him?
We have on a few different things. Yeah, we absolutely have.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
But mostly
What
we're
a
just mates
small
and we hang
world.
out when we can and ride when we can. And sometimes we actually meet each other overseas. Like this trip, he he was because he's got family on the West Coast. Obviously, he's American,
Yep.
but he was here for a month. And the day he flew out and landed at home, I flew here. So we missed each other this time.
Oh,
But
that's funny.
yeah, but a few years ago we were here at the same time and we went over and test rode the new Zeros and Energicas and so on and so forth. So yeah, sometimes it works.
He just picked up a couple of Energica's for him and his wife, his partner.
Yeah, we can talk about that too. Yeah, absolutely.
So
I
you're in
guess
America for a holiday or you're there for business?
both actually. There's a couple of things happening here, but and I'll get to this a bit more. But I just came from the Energica factory about 5 days ago.
Wow.
Um, Energica, well, their headquarters in the States, I should say. I mean, obviously, their main factory is in Modena in Italy. But Sam and I have started a relationship with Energica in 2020. So at the time, we were both riding our Zeros, and Energica approached Sam to start and basically said they had some bikes that could be obtained through like sort of a promotion. And basically, they just helped us to get bikes in Aotearoa because we have an excellent charging infrastructure, excuse me, and it's easier to get around, and our distances are shorter. And we know as riders, beautiful roads for motorcycling. So, you know, the option was given to us to bring in a couple of bikes at a I guess a special. They weren't brand new. They were used in a movie actually. I think it was like a GI Joe movie or something. I'm not really
Oh,
sure. I
wow.
haven't seen it, but yeah, it
So
was
they're
something like
famous
that.
already.
So yeah, they were already famous, something like that. Well, if you figure GI Joe B movies are famous, then yes. So we brought them in with next to no kilometers on it. I think both bikes were just parts bikes, so they didn't even really
Yeah.
ride them in the movies or anything. But they smashed a few up, and obviously didn't get those.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we brought those bikes in at the same time. I've shipped bikes over from California before, and that was our first foray into Energica from zero. And yeah, just different manufacturers, and they provide different things. Zero is definitely sort of the AC charging leader, and they've been making bikes since. I mean, you can go back as far as like 2010, 2009, around there. When they first started. But like commercially ready roadworthy bikes, probably 2014, somewhere around there.
Wow.
So yeah, Sam got his 2015 just before he shifted to Aotearoa and shipped it over. And I got mine maybe a year or two later, but mine was a 2016. And then when Energica approached us, we thought, hey, it's time to upgrade. And it's quite an upgrade for us. upgrade on power, upgrade on DC fast charging, because the only other real players in the game currently, despite what you might hear, is the Energicas and the Livewire, which previously was Harley Davidson, and now they're like their own company, sort of.
Yeah, that's right.
And those are really the only three like proper, regular, and readily available electric motorcycles around the world. There's smaller ones like Evoque, and there's lots of noise coming out of camps like Lightning, which hardly anyone, if to no one, has. Maybe a couple of bikes in California,
Yeah.
and they're not. There's a lot going on. It's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
And then also like the Evokes, which are trying to be pushed out, and some other Chinese bikes, Suron, Stormbee, et cetera, et cetera. But all those bikes are very, very different to the quality and the level of sort of fit and finish of the Energicas and the Livewires.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to ChargeNet. They built a nationwide infrastructure of DC fast charging, and that means that people can go further than the range of their particular vehicle. And the plan was 5 years ago to make a network of chargers off State Highway number 1 every 80 kilometres, and that was based on the average distance of a Nissan Leaf. And you think about the cars that are out there now, they're having to upgrade their network because they put in 50 kilowatt hour chargers, which is fine for a Nissan Leaf, and 25 kilowatt hour chargers, which is also fine for a Nissan Leaf. But now when you're getting some of your bigger battery cars, it takes quite a while to charge them. And there's two chargers they're looking at.
Yeah.
They're looking at.
I would also shout out to Stephen D, because
Stephen D. They're friends of mine.
And he's Canadian, by the way, so another Canadian import that's done good.
Yeah, they I went up to their place, and when they got the first Model S, and that's when I met Stephen D for the first time. And I met D across Facebook, and she invited me up to their place. She thought I lived in Auckland, and she said, "Oh, where did you come from today?" And I says, "Oh, I came from Wellington." And says, "What?" I says, "Where are you staying? You could have stayed with us." And I said, "No, I'm staying with my friend here. So it's okay. It's all good."
But they were definitely they had the foresight to see that the country was small enough and convenient enough to put in some strategic charges, and you could get around. And the whole country's benefited from that in terms of being able to. Plus, obviously, there's a big difference here too, that most of our energy is renewable, so you actually can not be running your EVs on coal, basically.
Well, the power they use is actually from another company called Ecotricity, and they only use renewable power. So you can guarantee whenever you're charging at one of those chargers, you're going to get renewable power. So that's all good. So that's a nice little free advert for them.
All good. And as long as you're not on those free ones from what is it, the
Victor?
No, well, maybe that too, but also the well, what are they called? Well Tech or something? The ones in the Waikato.
Open loop.
Something. They're like the Delta chargers from, I want to say it's like Well Networks or something like that, but it's Hamilton, so obviously
they're actually calling the network Well actually is Wellington Electricity Limited.
What am I thinking of? It's not.
No, but that's okay.
Well Tech.
It's okay.
It's one of those ones there, but they're all from Rahui Pōkeka, so they're all getting their Huntley stuff going.
So there's a company called Open Loop that actually have an agreement with Z Energy, and Z Energy have shut down all of they've asked ChargeNet to remove all of their chargers. So like in Wellington, that's affected us because Vivian Street was the most used charger, and second to that would have been Petone. And so those two are down, but there are other chargers that we can use. But I was talking to someone from ChargeNet the other day, and they've got plans to put in like 75 kilowatt hour tritium chargers, and they can charge two cars at the same time. Dual chargers.
Dual chargers.
And
we've seen a few of those, but
and what's the name of the other one? I don't know, but it's big, and it can charge 3 cars at the same time, and they could do 800
those are
volts.
Like the hyperchargers, eh?
Yeah, hyperchargers, 800 volts, and they can do 300 kilowatts per hour. So
Yeah,
that's just
it's
amazing.
it's
But
pretty mind
back to
blowing. Yeah.
back to you and motorcycles and your trip.
Yeah, so what I could tell you is once we got those two bikes across, um, we rode the hell out of them, of course.
Yeah,
And we've both done some trips. Sam did some videoing. I went and I guess set a record because you got to do stuff with these bikes and show people that they can do them. So I had already been the first to ride an electric motorcycle from Te Hiko to Matapohui in Bluff. I did that on the Zero. That was in 2018, 19,
I
around
remember that.
the Christmas, summer, or New Year's holidays, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And then Hakia New Year's, by the way. And then when I got the Energica, I was thinking what else I could do. So I said, well, I'll just ride 1,000 kilometers in a day because there's a thing called an iron butt, which is a little bit different. That's actually 1,600 kilometers or 1,000 miles. But in New Zealand, because it's slower and smaller, we have some of those rides, but we also have something called the KC 1000, and this is sponsored by New Zealand Distance Riders, and it just means it's the 1KC, sorry, which is the
Okay.
1000K circuit or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I ended up doing the first E1KC, and they sponsored it and made a special certificate, and we did all the official things for
That should have
start and
been on the
stop
news,
times.
mate.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It should be, but yeah, I haven't really. I don't know. I've got busy doing other things,
Yeah.
but that happened in 2020 on the Energica, and I picked a terrible route. I had just finished visiting with some friends for a motorcycle rally, and they were obviously, drooling all over the electric bike. And then I thought, and that was in Wharikahika, all the way on the East Cape. And I was like, I know, I'll ride back home to Whangarei the long way. So I rode from Wharikahika to Whangarei via National Park.
Oh, wow. That's
So,
rough.
well, it's a long day, but the
It
idea
can be
was to show
very
people
cold
that.
there.
Oh yeah, and you got stop traffic in the bay and all. It wasn't the best route to pick, but
Yeah, I know.
that's where I was. But the idea was to show people that it's an electric bike that can quite easily do way more than most people want to do in a day, but
Yep.
it's fully capable. So, and I did about 10 fast charges because what people might want to know is because it's the question after everyone says this is the first one I've seen, and then the
Yep.
next thing is all the questions: how fast does it go? How long does it
Yep.
take to charge? How far can you go on a charge? All that stuff.
Yep.
So I might as well share that.
Yep.
But firstly, as I said, like the Energica is probably it is top of the heap in terms of DC fast charging electric motorcycles currently. The Zeros are very good for AC charging, but in order to do the like Te to Matapohui trip, in 2018, I had to fit a whole bunch of extra chargers and like sort of piggyback them onto the bike
Yeah.
in order to be able to get 10 kilowatts of charging. And that still was like, actually, to be fair, I did that trip with 6.6 kilowatts of charging. So every time I stopped, I was like 2 and a bit hours to get the charge on. So it was interesting. It certainly wasn't the fastest trip, but I think I did it in about 8 days or something like that, a couple of days to visit friends. But with the Energica, they have an AC onboard AC charger, but you never really need to use it. So basically, you just use the DC charging and then home charging. Sort of plug into the wall, sort of 220, 240 volt charging. But it's all about the specs. So our 2020 bikes. So Sam had like a full fairing sport bike, and I had the same motor and battery and performance, but mine was more of like a Street Fighter version, so a little bit
Right.
more
Yep.
upright and comfortable, but still aggressive. So we would get about max, we would get 140 Ks from 100% to basically zero.
Yep.
But as you know, you travel from charger to charger rather than,
Yeah.
if you tried to do 140 Ks, you'd probably be in the middle of the motorway going, where's the charger?
Yeah.
So generally you do about 100 to 115, 20, 120K stints, DC fast charge and carry on. And the nice thing about the DC fast charging is that bike will DC fast charge probably 15 minutes to 80, 85%, and another probably, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. So about 25
They
minutes
have
to 100%.
10 kilowatt hour battery, don't they?
So those ones have actually a 13.4 kilowatt hour pack.
My
but
van has a
now,
10.6 kilowatt hour battery. I
which one
could
is
take a
that?
battery out of the Energica and put it in my van
You
and have
probably
more
could if you could get a
range.
hold of one. Yes, if you could get a hold of one, you probably would. And the other thing about those batteries is that they are the most energy dense batteries in the world because for their size, which is
Tiny.
minuscule for how
Yeah.
much you're getting in there. And I should mention that that was the 2020 bike. So Sam's bike, first Energica, and my first Energica were 13.4 kilowatt hour packs, which is
Yeah.
usable probably like 11 point something, 11.7 it was. And we were getting 104 Ks, 130, 140 Ks out of that. But they're bikes, so they're super unaerodynamic. I
Yeah.
think Sam's was a little bit more, but yeah, it's So that was 2020. Sam had his for a year and sold it, and then I still have mine, but mine's for sale now too because the company came back to us and said we want to show you the upgraded
We
bike.
want to
So
upgrade you. Yeah.
yeah, and we were like, yes, please bring it on. But you still have the physics, that still keeps you grounded because Sam's got his two now, and they came over, I think, about maybe 4 months ago,
Yeah.
around 4 months ago. And I knew that was happening, but had to keep it a secret for ages because, again, we use my shipping. But those bikes are now, that's 2021 and 22, those bikes in the same like physical space of the end of the pack, they're now pumping 21.5 kilowatt hours packs.
Wow.
Yeah,
You're
and not
kidding
only
me.
that, but no, and not only that, but they've managed when they did that, they managed to make the packs lighter. So
Oh
the bike
no.
got 60% more energy and became, I think, about 15 kilos lighter. And you definitely notice it; they are
I
much
want to
lighter.
know what chemistry it is.
Yeah, well, everyone does, but that's their thing.
Oh, they
And
they won't tell
I
you.
know
Okay.
I probably get in trouble telling what I do know already, and I don't even know everything. But
Is
yeah,
it
it's pretty
NMC
special.
or NMC, NMCA?
So in terms of, so they're using lithium iron phosphate. So those
I
batteries.
love lithium iron phosphate. The
Yeah,
biggest
yeah.
problem is they're generally fairly heavy for the amount of charge you put in them. But what they are
There
really
is
good at,
that. So,
they
yeah,
last a long time, and they charge really fast and they dump out pretty
sure.
fast. But they don't
Well,
have the same power as a lithium ion battery.
yeah,
In
but on a
terms of,
motorbike, they
it
have
doesn't matter.
tons.
Yeah,
Well,
they've
the
heaps.
idea is that with the new bikes, you've got the 60% larger, like denser pack,
Yeah,
same physical size, but
yeah,
60% more density, energy density. But the physics mean that that will take longer to charge. And
yeah,
there's a whole lot of programming to protect that battery and make it last long. So as soon as you start heating up because you've got to charge more battery, thermal cutback. So
yeah.
I remember I told you that, my smaller pack is 15 minutes
15
and
minutes.
gone,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
20 if you're trying to get a big charge. On the new bikes, you're actually on the charger for like 35, 40 minutes, and that's a significant difference.
Are
So,
they air cooled or
what,
water cooled? Sorry, I'm
so they
geeking out
are,
here.
no, that's all right. So they are, and we'll get to the newest bike because there's a brand new bike they brought
Yeah,
out as well, which is different again. But in terms of the difference between my bike and Sam's newest bike, so the bikes are air cooled when you're riding, but they are liquid cooled when they're being charged.
right.
So what you're looking at is they get some cooling when they're charging, but it's still heat. So
Yeah,
this is the issue when you have the new bike and the old, well, I should say the 21.5 kilowatt hour pack. Uh, let's say doing a long distance race against the 13.4. The 13.4 would do more charges, but it would probably get there faster because it's charge and go, and
yeah.
it never gets even like
Can't cool
hot.
down. Yeah. Oh, it
Well, it
doesn't.
does cool down faster than the bigger pack. So the bigger
Okay.
pack will actually like give you thermal cutback on your charging.
Ah,
And the people who have them have actually had to like work out the sweet spot, which is basically 30 to 80% charging.
right.
And when you do that, you've just knocked back some of
5 minutes.
capacity because yeah. So there is that challenge, but people want range, especially overseas because the distances are much greater.
They're
So
vast. Yeah.
that bike will do 220 kilometers on the motorway. I'm giving you motorway figures, like 140
Yep.
is motorway. As soon as you travel around the city or mix it up, you get way more. But
Yep.
we like to go on, how fast
Long
can you
drive.
go
Yeah.
at
Long
how
rides.
fast
Yeah.
can you go in 100 kilometers? Yeah, 100 kilometers an hour basically. Um, and that's the figures I'm giving you. But so it's great to have 220 kilometers of range, but then you'll be charging for 35 to 40 minutes just to get 85% back. And then your battery is warm for the rest of the day. And if you wanted to do multiple charges, it can be a challenge. So
Yeah, I understand.
some people are happy sticking with the smaller battery pack for now. However, uh, when I brought my bike over, I've actually done a lot of the shows, like this New Zealand Motorcycle Show. There's Shiny Side Up, which is sort of sponsored partially by ACC and Ride Forever and all these, motorcycle funded programs. So I've been touring around with my bike, showing it at these shows and giving some talks, because people want to hear about it, much like this. And so because I'm still doing that, it makes sense to have the newest bike at these shows rather than showing an older bike. So that's when
Yeah.
Energica came back to me and they said, "Do you want a newer one?" And I'm like, "Well, sure, I do, but I've got to suss it out. They ain't giving them away, right?" But they are helping us to get them here and doing what they can to be supportive. And that's another thing. The company is fantastic. Like, I haven't had many, if any, warranty issues or anything, but even small things, they're right away sorting it out, sending a small part over, like an LED ballast, like something that could be on any vehicle, and they're just like, "We'll send you one." And they sent me one with a spare and a whole new headlight. I didn't even need it. They're like, "Just keep it as
Yeah,
a spare."
Sam's talked about them. He's talked
Yeah,
about
they're
the
great.
challenges that he's had with the Zero and having to get, secondhand parts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
To be
his
fair, my Zero
experience.
only had, Zero only had like 21,000 Ks by the time I sold it. But I
Oh, yeah.
was preempting, I didn't want to have those problems. So I was like, and to be fair, my bike went to Wellington and is with another friend of mine now, and he's put another 50,000 Ks on it with lots of parts replaced and blown out chargers and things like that.
Yeah,
But he's still going hard, and so it's great that my bike is still going.
yeah, because when
You've probably
Sam.
seen it at a show. Actually, you've probably seen it alongside Sam's or at a show. It's a little black Zero SR.
Oh, okay. But I was
But
thinking about
anyways,
Sam was talking about his experience of taking his wife over to Anangika, and she's a little bit shorter than him. He's a tall guy.
much shorter. Yeah, Jen
Yeah,
is
and so they
5 foot
had to
nothing.
modify her bike, so
They
so
did.
that the seat wasn't too high for her, and they
Yep,
did it
yep.
happily. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
man, that's just service.
Well, this is not only service, but it's a nice thing, as long as we're talking about Sam, and I can give him a shout out too. Like, he's actually helped them to sell a lot of bikes,
Yeah,
and
I'm not
and
surprised.
yeah, and his videos are great. Like, if anyone hasn't seen them, like, they're a crack up, like
Yeah, it's
somehow
funny.
he's managed as an American to get the Kiwi humor down pat, and
He
he does
has,
pretty
yeah,
well with it. And he's an '80s kid, so all the old references and cutaways and stuff amuse people like us who are raised in the '80s. But the thing is that trip over to Italy was pretty much like it's like, as an influencer, he's finally made it, which I was really stoked about. Like, I was really happy to see that being offered to him. They had an amazing time. It was whirlwind. They flew more in the air in time than they spent on the ground in Italy. It was like two
wow.
days and they were gone. But they just slept on the plane and got it all in, and treated like proper professional influencers and motorcycle enthusiasts. And so
I think
it
they
just
are.
put them up
It's
and
like
let them ride a new
reason
bike.
I've
So
had to keep calling him because I keep finding out that he's done something interesting. Like,
yeah,
I wanted
yeah,
to get
oh yeah,
do
he's
some shoot some footage on the first trip of the electric ferry, and I
oh
wasn't able
yeah,
to
yeah,
pull it
yeah.
off.
So
He did it, and
yep, yep.
then I read a newspaper
That theory
article
was
about
made
him.
in Whangarei, by the way, just in case
Oh,
anyone
okay.
they did the whole charging system, and this place that's in Whangarei, great little engineering shop there. But anyways, carry on.
And also he got a ride on an electric pipistrel across
Mm-hmm.
across the Cook Strait. And going,
Mm-hmm.
Sam, my bro,
Yeah,
what's going
yeah,
on? And he says, oh, they saw him, and he just keeps getting invited to things. But he's a
yeah. It's
very
great.
personable guy, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is. He's not too super fond of the whole like chatting live in front of people, but he's all good behind the
What do you mean?
camera
He's
and
great at it.
such. I think he's good at it too, but I think
Yeah.
it's not his favorite thing to do, and which is why he's like, "Can you do the why don't you go and do the shows and the talks and stuff,
Oh,
and then
okay.
I'll keep doing the videos. And they're like, hey, we work it out. But
Personally,
he's
I
been to
don't
some of the
care.
shows.
I
Yeah, I
do
mean,
I
hey,
do whatever. I mean, I've been
yeah,
going along to shows and uh, promoting electric vehicles for years.
I know you
My
have.
little
Yeah.
van's on the front page of the Wellington EV Owners Group.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
wasn't my idea to put it up there, but some of the admins decided to put. I'm an admin on that, by the way,
Mm.
but I'm not really that active on there. But they wanted me to join as an admin because I've been
We're all
involved.
promoting, yeah, we're all
I've been
promoting
involved.
in our own way, but mostly
Yeah,
it's just we're using the bike or the car, and people ask us about it. So
yeah, that's right.
yeah, so anyways, just get back into this thing to catch us up.
Yeah,
So yeah, so that was 2021, 2022, basically, depending on where you are on the planet in terms of that model. And this newest model, this is the one we were just talking about that Sam was invited to go and test ride, is also an Energica. Um, and actually, let's just be clear about this now. Energica. They're Italian. That's how you say it. Energica. The
Energica.
Americans can't do that. And they're like Energica, and they say all these other things, but
Oh,
it's
sorry, I
Energica.
thought it was Energica, but it's
No,
Energica.
I mean, you might hear it from someone else, but
Energica.
it's Energica.
And you got to
Like
do that.
you
You
got
got
to
to do
use the
that.
hand,
Yeah.
Energica.
Energica.
But anyways, yeah, Energica. So Energica, the company, has just been every year trying to make improvements where zero might change a color.
Yeah.
So at least they're actually making efforts. And this year they remodeled the motor again because they had only had a totally remodeled motor maybe a year ago. So they've remodeled that motor completely again and have brought out what's basically the first sport touring style motorcycle, and it's called the Xperia Green Tourer. Don't ask me about the name, Xperia Experience,
Yep.
Um, but the idea is that this bike is meant to be like a long distance tourer, comfortable two up. And of course, they've made a whole bunch of other advancements. It's a completely new battery chemistry, a completely new motor, a completely new trestle frame, and also rear swing arm, all
They
sorts of
remind
things.
me of
And the
another
battery's
company.
bigger again.
They remind me of Tesla. That's the
Yeah,
kind of stuff
they're
that
fairly
Tesla
innovative.
does. Yeah.
Yeah, but the scale that they do this stuff and the speed at which they do it is pretty impressive for a smaller company. And so Sam was invited to go and test this bike out. We actually were told that it was coming out, so nice to get these little updates early. And then and it's kind of there's embargoes everywhere, but they're like, hey, this is what's coming out, just so you know, and we'll let you guys know about it. But it was
Yeah.
just great. We appreciate that they fill us in, but going that step further to invite Sam over to test ride it with his with his wife Jen, I thought that was awesome. So I was very happy for them. But that bike is another step up again, and that bike is actually not a big increase, but they've boosted that one to 22.5 kilowatt hours. So it's gained a kilowatt hour, but every bit's good enough. But more importantly, it's become more efficient. They've changed where the charging is. They've created an easy access OBD2 port. It's basically ready to go, big tall screen, comfortable seating and positioning. The motor is smaller and the weight is a little bit, it's probably similar to the 21, 22 bikes, but the motor is much smaller. So the only thing that it's lost is a little bit of power, but that's top end power. So most people now have experienced it, twist the throttle, and they feel the same rush of instant torque that the other bikes have. But just to compare, the newest Xperia is rated at 100, I want to say 100 and let's get this right. I think it's about 90 kilowatt hours, whereas the Rebelle, which is Sam's bike, Rebelle
Yeah.
RS,
Yeah.
and Jen's bike is a Rebelle. Those bikes are rated at 126 kilowatt hours. So it's quite a big difference in terms of the power curve, but the speed is similar because they're just so quick off the throttle. It's just that maybe the Rebelles are less touring friendly, which you could definitely tour them, but a little bit more power in reserve. But yeah, so they're just making it more streamlined and cruisy to basically be a relaxed, long distance tour. But we are waiting somewhat impatiently to find out how they fare with multiple charges. And we think there's going to be some improvements there because it's a whole new motor and design. So we don't mind if you lose a little bit of horsepower, so and kilowatts, as long as they've improved the charging, cooling, and it is a totally different cooling system as well. Now everything is integrated into, whether you're charging or running, you've got a full system going through the battery, the controller, everything. So big changes, and hopefully that means shorter charging. And that's the thing that all the riders currently of Energica bikes are really waiting to see. How does this bike perform from charge stop to charge stop over multiple charges?
Wow. So let's switch to
But it's
something else.
coming. Yeah,
We've done the motorcycles today. Now I understand you've been
I think you
driving
caught up
around.
mostly.
You've been driving around in a Model 3 Tesla. Tell us about that.
I mean, the long and short of it is that even before the entire global fuel crisis and war in Ukraine and all the other things that are influencing, OPEC and, greedy buggers not releasing new oil and all that sort of crap.
Ukraine.
Even before that, it was cheaper and zero emissions to rent a Tesla. And for those that don't know, in America, there's a private rental company, rental website called Turo. That's Turo.
Turo, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and basically private owners of cars rent their cars out. And so maybe about 3-4 months ago, when I knew I was coming over here, I just picked one up for a week because I wanted zero emissions. I've actually done 2 long road trips in Aotearoa with a Model 3 once and a Model S prior to that. And so I'm fortunate enough to know that they're just a much easier, less taxing vehicle to drive long distance because it does most of the driving for you. They're very convenient cars. So, and obviously very good on, emissions, and, charging is cheap and cost. And then when the war happened, like the fuel for a short period of time in California, which has higher fuel costs anyways, but due to taxes, was like up to almost $9-10 a gallon over here. But insane. And last week when we were driving around the Tesla, it dropped down to like $6.50 in some places. But I can tell you right now, we spent for I think about 8 days of using that car, and we used it every day. We did a big loop around the state. It's a very big state, for people who don't know. I got the bill, and it was $77 for all the charging. And supercharging everywhere. I didn't use anything but supercharging, and it's all over California because that's where these cars were born, right? At least the Fremont cars. And so there's superchargers all over. I mean, and we're talking like, like we at home, we don't even know. There's like 4 superchargers lined up, and you're like, wow, they got 4 bays. Yeah. I went to like a 50-something bay supercharging place in Tejon Valley in the middle of near Bakersfield, and they were like solar carports that shaded you and charges everywhere, and it was just still really quick. I was getting probably to start maybe like 120 kilowatts or something like that, like way more than you need, and the cars charge so quickly. So yeah, $77 to do probably very close to around 16 or 1700 miles, like well over 2,000 kilometers.
Wow.
So $77,
mate.
Oh, so yeah, so we use that to get us around basically, which is great because we have our son with us. It's his first trip over to America. He's been to Australia for 4 days with us when he was 10. So now he's 21. And
I saw him in the photograph.
Yeah, there you go. So he's loving it because he's been, he's seeing all these places in movies, and now we're driving around. He's like, I've been here in GTA. And for those that don't know, that's Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. So he sees all these places and recognizes them from the video games, but it's becoming real for him. So it's a great trip to sort of expose him to that. And the business side, we won't go into this, is a whole nother cordial, but I'm heavily involved with Wakas both in Aotearoa and overseas. And so
I do actually want you to just mention for everybody how they can get a hold of you in terms of your business stuff, because I think what you're doing with the electric motorcycles is just amazing. You do tours, is that right? So what other businesses do you do?
To make some distinctions, the tours are grown ice bikes because it's just not feasible for me to like hire.
But you sell electric motorcycles?
I am a person who helps people to get on them, so I can import them and help people to find them with my contacts over in America.
Yeah.
Um, we do have to change the charging port over because they use J1772, and thankfully we are CCS too, which is obviously you're getting a bit
Yeah.
more charge out of that, but that's not a difficult process. And if they're only looking for AC charging, that's easy. You just use a Mannekes cable, and that's all right. But I can help bring it, and I brought several zeros over. These Energicas have come over, and should be bringing a new bike for myself and another one for somebody else over in the next like maybe month. Well, I mean, it'll take a few months to get it over here. I'm hoping by summer. But yeah, so if people want to get into contact or they want to know how to do that, the easiest way to find me is I have a social media page. It's a Facebook page, and it is Aotearoa NZ Electric Bike, and that's a play on Aotearoa, and
Yeah.
just you put the letter E dash O T. I got to spell here. E dash O T E A R O A. Right, Aotearoa.
Yeah.
NZ Electric Bike. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with me, and reminding me that I need to throw up some
So there's
photos
a name for what you're doing. Okay. It's not. It's called.
I'm just
It's not a side hustle. I would call it
no, it's
arbitrage.
just yeah,
Arbitrage.
something like that. That sounds good.
Making
It sounds
stuff
fancy. I
happen.
like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I ride and people ask questions, and I try and get the word out.
Hooked them up.
But yeah,
Got the
so
hookups.
yeah, well, I mean, we know people and they see what we
Yeah.
do, and the electric
I
riding
know
community is
someone.
small
I
and
know
it's
someone.
growing. Yeah, and it's a small electric community at the moment, but we're growing.
Yeah.
And the people look to us who have a bit more experience, and we share with them. So when Energica saw that, so they invited me to come to the factory while I was here, and that's in South San Francisco, and that's like the HQ for America. And meet with the CEO, meet with the chief engineer, who we've spoken with several times before, but Sam's met them prior to me because he lives here. Well, he used to live here, and so he's had a couple of trips before I was here to meet them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I caught up with them, and we talked about the new bike, and they were very accommodating as usual. They're like, "What do you want? What can we do for you?" And I'm like, "You guys are doing heaps for us already, but
Yeah.
what can I do for you? How can I help more?" And so we worked out a plan, and I was told probably in the next month will be something shiny and relatively new. Will be given a little sticker that has my name on it, and yeah, sort out the deal. And obviously, I'm moving my bike in Aotearoa, which if anyone wants to get on one very quickly, and it's a very quick bike, that one's for sale.
Yeah. Jump
But
on
yeah,
that.
so yeah, jump on that. I mean, it's. I think I've got like 16,000 Ks on it. It's still you barely
Oh,
broken in.
it's
Like
like
it's
brand new.
yeah, it's and that's how they ride. Like they ride like they're like on
Yeah.
the rails and brand new and all that such. But yeah. So and to be fair, the new bike styled pretty much exactly like the one I'm riding now, just a slightly bigger battery, which I prefer faster charging, to be perfectly honest. But when I'm showing it at shows and such, you kind of need the newest. And it just so happens that with the new battery, that is an easy from the front door to Tamaki in 200 Ks. So pretty easy to do on that bike. Whereas with my current bike, I do one charge stop.
Right.
You'd probably stop it for a pie anyways, but so it'll be fine. I mean, I might wait a little bit longer at the other charges, but yeah. So Aotearoa would be that particular fancy word that you said, just promoting electric bikes and all sorts of electric bikes.
I
We
think
talk
it's a
about the
French
stock
word.
bar. Yeah, we talk about the stock
Arbitrage.
bar. Yeah, we like that word. We like that word. But we talk about electric dirt bikes. People are asking questions about even electric bikes. Like I ride mountain bikes as well, so we got a
Yeah.
couple of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
at home also. But primarily the electric motorbikes, and I've answered. I don't even know how many questions. I've had people call me. I've actually helped get a guy who's in the north in Warkworth onto Sam's old bike. So he's riding Sam's old bike right now, and he actually owns. Check this out. He owns
Dude.
a vintage and custom Italian motorbike shop only. He's got probably 50, 60 bikes in his shop, and now he doesn't want to ride anything other than the electric bike that we have. So,
You
so
should
that
be
just
doing
goes to
this
show
for a
you.
living, bro.
Well, it kind of turned into that, but we're just promoting EVs and to people who are curious about the bikes. But one thing I will say, because as much as I love riding bikes, I suppose, an environmentalist before anything.
Yeah. Okay.
And so electric bikes are a lot of fun, but that doesn't mean that I'm blind to the fact that where we need electrification is in
Yeah.
infrastructure and
Yeah.
buses, trains, cranes, or
Everything.
big
Electrify
trucks and
everything.
yeah, electrify everything. Because the idea is that a bike at the end of the day in Aotearoa is a toy a little bit. It
Yeah.
might be a commuter, but let's see those electric scooters and those electric
Yeah.
mopeds, because in the Asian and developing countries, that's their primary transport. So that's where you start reducing emissions on a larger scale. But yes, cars as well, personal cars for sure. But for me, it's about promoting, a cleaner tayo, and or at least less hammered one. And we can do that in a small way when we're driving, EVs. So that's pretty important to me. We used to have a Nissan Leaf for the last couple of years, and
Yeah.
that car made us money in the time that we owned it. Like, what
Wow.
car does that? Like
Not many.
you use it for 2.5 years, you make your money back, and then you sell it and make money on the overall purchase after 2.5 years. So it's
Yeah. That's
incredible.
crazy.
And then we've upgraded to an Ionic, which my wife is loving right now, because it's a great car, but you also get about 220 k's range. I think that's the sweet spot. We found that's a sweet spot around 220 k's of range, because it's just enough that you would probably want to stop after that amount anyways, or 200 k's, and you can just plug in and
Yeah.
do your whaiiti stop, and away you go.
I think Tesla's realised that there's no point playing the range game, because what you've got to do is get cars out the door as fast as you can. And if you have to keep putting things like 1,000 miles or 1,000 kilometers range in cars, you're going to use up a lot of batteries. It's going to be a heavy car, and it's not going to be as efficient. Whereas if you actually get the sweet spot, you'd say, actually, that's the sweet spot. That's the most efficient. That's actually enough for most people, because there's only so much you can do in terms of driving before you need a rest anyway.
Yeah, that
You're going
is
to need a
true,
break.
Thomas. But the other thing too, Thomas, is that the sweet spot is different for different countries.
It
So
is.
for us
It
in
is.
little old Aotearoa, like, our distances and our ranges are short, so it's
Yeah.
pretty easy to hit the sweet spot early on. But having had this discussion just a few days ago with the CEO at Energica, everyone here is all about range. They just want more range, more range, more range, because the distances are massive,
Yeah.
So for them, 220 kilometers, which is what, maybe like 140 miles or something,
Yeah.
it's just barely enough. And most of these early adopters were just cruising around on like 60, 70 miles of range until the new bikes came around. So it is a different thing when you're looking at these big long distances here. But you're right, like, the bigger the battery, the more cost, the more time it takes to charge, all that sort of stuff. So they do find a sweet spot. And yeah, I mean, they'll find it in bikes as well, until technology changes, and it's happening rapidly, where you can, become even more efficient, whether it's with your charging or battery density or both.
Anyway, Jeff, it's been great talking to you. I'm conscious of the fact that we've been talking for a little while. I'm a bit of a clock watcher, because in radio we need to do that. And some of this might fall on the cutting floor, but I hope not.
It's
This
totally
is
fine.
actually,
Use what's useful.
yeah. And so I'm gonna end it there for today, and I'm gonna catch up with you when you get back finally, which will be,
Awesome.
is it
Looking forward to that.
a month or two, maybe? Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
yes
I'll
and no.
stay.
Like, this is the life of a busy person. I'm back for a week, and then
Yeah.
back over doing the tours
Tell me
overseas
about it,
again,
man.
and then back
Yeah.
doing worker stuff in Canada and San Francisco. So I'll be going
Yeah.
back in November, actually. So yeah, busy times. But I got another side hustle, which is a tourism thing in Aotearoa. So I'll be coming back through Punake, and I'll be sure to check in and look you up. Have a cuppa.
Awesome, bro. Well, thanks very much for coming on, and just say the name of your Facebook page again so everybody gets it 100%.
Sure. So that is Aotearoa. That's Aotearoa. NZ Electric Bike. So you could probably look up NZ Electric Bike, and then maybe you'll get some mountain
Do
bike
a
stuff.
search.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Aotearoa is what you're looking for. So basically Aotearoa with an E in front of it.
Okay.
And yeah, there's actually another page too that I run, which is NZ and Oz electric motorcycles 2-wheel charging, the number 2.
Oh yeah.
That's a whole other page that just talks about all different ones, not just my bike and what I'm doing, but whatever's out there on the table. The 2 pages are linked anyways, but yeah, mihi atu ki a koe e te rangatira, Thomas, pai ki te kōrero, ki te kōrero pana ki wene mea, and nā moto paika hihiko, EVs, yeah, all the things there. And yeah, shout out to everyone who's taken the time to listen. And if you have any questions, fire them away to Thomas or myself, and just keep doing what we do and sharing the kōrero.
Do what we do. Kia ora, bro. Mātua.
Mihi atu.